A Giants podcast for Giants fans
by Giants fans.
It's Shaun Morash.
On the sideline, into the end zone. Touchdown, Giants!
From the offseason to the wins and the losses, it's time to take one Giant step.
Welcome in to One Giant Step. Might I add, one freaking giant step. It's the recap edition of Week 5, a Giants victory in Seattle, 29-20. In case you can't tell in my voice, what a day. I mean, what a freaking day. I'm Shaun Morash. He's Bryce Gelman. What a weekend in New York to begin with, whether it's the Yankees winning their first game in Kansas City. I know it was a heartbreaker on Sunday, almost simultaneous with the Giants for the Mets, but they still escaped Philly with a 1-1 split. Not a great weekend for the Jets. They folded 2-3, but here are the Giants, same record as the Jets with a victory at 2-3. I can't grasp what just happened in Seattle. I'm Shaun Morash. He's Bryce Gelman. Bryce, hell freaking oh. I mean, unbelievable, buddy.
Dude, what I saw at the start of that game, after what we witnessed, the four awful plays at the goal line, Eric Gray fumbles the ball, they return it for a touchdown. I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, first off, not only is this game over, the season is over. There's nothing to worry about going forward because this team is a joke. They will continue being a joke. Shaun, they responded, and they responded big time. They came right back out, and they scored. Like, they did everything they needed to do following that massive blunder that, like, I barely even remember at this point. We could be sitting here right now talking about that one play, but we're not, and that's a testament to how well they responded to that play.
It's crazy. And I'm going to just briefly walk you through my day because I venture to guess I'm not the only one in this boat, right? We're New York sports fans. I have several family members and friends that are Jet fans. So we start the day, my backyard. I got a Blackstone. We're making breakfast. We're doing the Jets in London. Obviously, we knew if you listen to the postgame or the preview podcast, no Malik Neighbors, no Devin Singletary. We knew, and by the way, some of the things we said on this podcast came true. We'll get to that in a second. Yep. We knew what it would take for the Giants to win this kind of game. And there was something about today, Bryce. Perhaps it was the mimosas starting at 10 a.m. Perhaps. I don't know what it was. But I started to feel weird about this game. Something about today just felt in my blood. I'm like, this isn't going to be a typical Giant blowout game. I don't know if they're going to win the game, but I really feel, and I hammered it. I bet them to win outright. I parlayed them with the Mets to win outright. I took them with the points. Something about today, since we recorded this post-game podcast, just told me there's something different in the air today. But anyway, let's get right into it. You mentioned it. That started the game. Seahawks get the ball. The Giants defense comes out. Hell of a job, as they did all afternoon long. And we will give plenty of crowns to so many guys on the defense. And I'll just start right here because I might have to say it 14 times. Deonte Banks. Unbelievable job he did on DK Metcalf throughout the afternoon. Unbelievable job. Gives me so much optimism for his career moving forward. But the Giants take the ball and for basically bleed the rest of the first quarter clock, go all the way down the field. And obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you're a Giant fan, by the way, download, subscribe everywhere podcasts are available. Eric Gray fumbles the ball at the goal line. Seahawks return it 101 yards for the touchdown. Let me get this out of the way. We all know if you listen to this podcast, the Giants won. What happened fundamentally on that play is such a disgrace on an NFL level, on a broadcasting level, and to a lesser degree, a Giants level. Yeah. Let's start with the Giants part, and to be fair, right? We're one Giant step. How you don't just have Daniel Jones dive over and get pushed like the tush push for you. That's neither here nor there. Terrible play call to begin with. But, Bryce, you've watched a ton of football over your young life. I've watched a ton of football. The millisecond a ball breaks the plane, it's a touchdown. That's it. The goal and the idea that this was not a Giants touchdown, and don't tell me, because I, like an idiot, no, Bryce, I, like an idiot, rewound this 15 times. It's a touchdown. He breaks the plane before he ever loses control. How this got screwed up, I don't know. But now on a broadcasting level, Tiki Barber, my obviously colleague, co-host, it's not his fault. He ain't at the truck. The idea that you go to commercial break when this play happens, you come back and the Seahawks are on the field to kick an extra point, and you immediately go to commercial before we as a broadcasting audience get a replay. It might be the most disgrace in broadcasting history, and that's saying a lot. We've had a lot in recent weeks. That includes baseball with ESPN interviewing everybody in the bottom of the ninth. That was unbelievable. But neither here nor there. That was a touchdown. And in the post-game recap I made sure, because I don't want to come on here sounding like an idiot, and I rewatched this again. No. Eric Gray broke the plane before the ball came loose. All it takes a millisecond. That's a touchdown. The Giants were completely screwed. Now, they should have just let Daniel Jones dive over. Eric Gray could hold on to the ball a little bit longer. No doubt about it. The Giants got absolutely fist bleeped. Let's just call it right then and there. Okay. That should have been a touchdown to start the game, Bryce.
Listen, I didn't rewind it a million times like yourself. I unfortunately had to watch the game on my phone for at least the first half. When that happened, I'm like, all right, first off, I had the exact same reaction as you. Is how the hell are they going to go to commercial break and not show the replay? It was the most chaotic play I've seen all season long.
Oh.
And the idea that they didn't show every single how many pylon cams they have? I know with that angle, they probably wouldn't have seen anything because the amount of bodies in the
By
middle.
the way, we still haven't seen a pylon clam.
We haven't.
I mean, if there's a pylon
even
cam
if it's obstructed, even if it's obstructed, I'd like to know it exists. It's like the Pentagon footage from. I'm not getting into that, but it's like where is the footage? Like why didn't we get to see that in the moment too? I trust your judgment, Shaun. I trust your judgment. I trust that you're not biased.
No, that was a touchdown,
saying this.
Dude.
I saw the ball over the plane, but it looked like he didn't have control. But again,
Bryce,
I didn't see it as much as you did.
Bryce, picture this, and because I don't want to sound like an idiot. Bryce, the moment a ball, the tip of it, the tiny tip of a ball, crosses the tiny tip of a white line in the goal line. That's a touchdown. Think about what has to happen for this not to be a touchdown. That means before the ball, the tiniest tip of the ball doesn't even hit the tiniest tip of the white line. Eric Gray is losing the ball. Go back and watch the replay. You tell me if that's what happened. That's not what happened. He does lose the ball after that initial more than a millisecond is broken of the plane. It's absurd that that's not called a touchdown. But really, why it's not called a touchdown, Bryce, beyond any other doubt, why it's not called a touchdown is because on the field, the refs tried to do what people credit the refs for doing and what in fact is the lazy thing for doing. Let a play out and then go back and let replay help you. The only problem with that is then you run into the old conclusive to overturn what you have on the field. So what the refs had on the field was a fumble with the ball is loose, which you clearly see Eric Gray have the ball is loose with. But for them to do that, they're not spotting. All it takes is a millisecond. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
If that's ruled a touchdown on the field, it's a touchdown on the field.
Exactly.
The refs tried to be lazy and lean on replay, and it came back to haunt the Giants because then you're playing the conclusive thing on the other side. It's insane. Like all you have to do is use common sense for that not to be a touchdown. What has to happen? Okay, we've spent 8 minutes here. We're through the podcast. Like that is absurd. But let's get on to the rest of the game. Much like Cleveland and what happened early in that game. The fact that the Giants responded, and I just want to remind everybody because I don't think it can be overshot. The Giants didn't have Malik Neighbors in this game. The Giants didn't have Devin Singletary in this game. And yet, offensively, they moved the freaking ball up and down the field on the Seahawks defense that did have Julian Love, that did have Leonard Williams, a couple of our old friends, that did have Witherspoon, that up until the fourth quarter did have Tariq Woolen. And Daniel Jones without Malik Neighbors, without Devin Singletary, but behind this pass-protecting offensive line and run-blocking offensive line with Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah.
They move the ball up and down the field. And before you respond, Bryce, I'm sorry. It has to be said because it's crazy not to say it. Daniel Jones deserves flowers today.
He does.
He connected on a deep ball to Darius Slayton. Granted, he didn't take many deep shots, but when he did, he connected. He connected on that touchdown. He went 23 of 34 for 257 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He took 3 sacks. And by the way, I was in agreement on all 3 of those sacks. He didn't force anything that turned into a turnover at all. And we said it on this podcast in the preview edition. For the Giants to win this game, they couldn't lose the turnover battle. Daniel Jones made sure he didn't turn the ball over in this game at all. They got the huge DK Metcalf fumble. Tyrone Tracy was unbelievable on the ground, and maybe this is something we discussed in the preview pod, whether he deserves more of a carry share away from Devin Singletary. Yes. Darius Slayton had an infuriating drop in this game. Of the 11 incompletions they had, Wan'Dale Robinson on a big down had an infuriating drop in this game.
Eric Gray too.
And this is not, again, everything we talk about Daniel Jones doesn't have to be about his future and about the Giants quarterback referendum, but it could be about the week. Daniel Jones was pretty freaking awesome this week, and he really deserves his flowers not having Malik Neighbors out there because a lot was on his shoulders. Oh, by the way, in an environment where you could not hear, I thought he was incredible, Bryce. Really, it's like an unsexy game to say it, but this is one of Daniel Jones' better games in his career when you consider everything that was on the line. He was unbelievable today.
And to start the game the way they started on the first play of the game, he fumbles the ball. The first play for the Giants.
God, I forgot about that.
You forgot about that.
Oh my God!
That Andrew Thomas at the jump on. My first immediate thought is like, all right, well, this is how the game is going to start. They are not going to be able to move the ball on offense. They're like, I don't know. My original response is to literally tweet out year 6, by the way, because I assumed that's how it was going to go. I just assumed that was going to be, like the sign for the rest of the sign for things to come. And it obviously wasn't. I was completely wrong, and I take that back. And that was on me. But not only did Daniel Jones, not only does he deserve his flowers, but Brian Daboll, besides those 4 plays from the goal line in the first quarter, pitched a perfect game. He called a perfect game. Every play call. I mean, listen, you also have to, personnel needs to execute. The offensive line needs to block. They need to block, for passing downs and in the run game. And they did. They executed. And there were some big drops. Doesn't matter. The big drops, they still won this game. I wouldn't say easily because then it got close. But if you swing the 14-point swing at the start of the game, the Giants dominated this game. It was never even close. Yeah. It shouldn't have been close. And that is, you could attribute that to how well Brian Daboll called this game. We love to give him what from time to time for his smug attitude, his know-it-all sense. He's a great football mind. He's a great play caller.
I consider Pat Leonard from the Daily News actually a friend. I think he's a good guy. And I know not all Giant fans agree with him and do whatever. Hey, Pat, we asking Brian about his job security today? I mean, my God. At 2-3 through October, what he just did in Seattle, I think we could stop asking those questions for the rest of the year. Brian Daboll's a good freaking football coach, man. He's a good football coach. He had this team prepared on the road. It would have been very easy for them to lay down their swords. They were tremendous today. And it wasn't just Wan'Dale Robinson catching 17 passes. Slayton was, I could do without that one drop, but was severely involved. Yeah. Obviously, the deep ball, obviously the touchdown. That was incredible. And Bryce, this is where we pat ourselves on the back. Did I not predict at some point the tight ends were going to have to be involved here this week with the way the Giants are going to do it? And this was, by the way, wasn't a 100-yard game from Theo Johnson, but this was the Theo Johnson game when the Giants needed him on a couple of those passes, whatever he caught, the 4 balls or whatever. The tight end game was way more involved for the Giants this week, and it had to be. And Daniel Jones found them, and that was all part of Brian Daboll's big game.
And I need to pat myself on the back for something too. And I just like, I don't even care if you disagree with it at this point. First off, let me just announce this. Dexter Lawrence is going to be my first ever adult purchase of a jersey. I have never loved a player more in my entire life than I love Dexter Lawrence. Don't play with Jalen Brunson, probably number 1. Dexter Lawrence, close second, right? Shaun, he's easily the best defender of football. I don't even want to.
There was a point late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter, where it was DJ Davidson and Nacho out there.
Yeah.
Where I turned to my dad, who was in the backyard with me at my bar, and I said, did I miss Dexter Lawrence getting hurt or something? I feel like he's actually had a quiet day. And for the final 8 minutes of the game, Dexter Lawrence basically was involved on every single big moment that happened for this team. You're absolutely right.
Defensive tackles are not supposed to have 3 sacks in a game. Like,
that's crazy.
That's not supposed to happen. Has Quinnen Williams even had 3 sacks over the last 2 years?
Dude. And I know the stats won't translate either, but what a play by Brian Burns, obviously late in this game. That was huge. And Kayvon Thibodeau was all over the field all afternoon long. The Giants pass rush got after it, and they absolutely panicked Geno Smith. No doubt about it. And like we said at the beginning, I'll say it again, Deonte Banks was incredible today. And for the better part, the secondary, look, obviously there was moments where Lockett got open where you were a little confused. But when you consider what the Seattle offense had done on Monday night versus Detroit and what they were posing, Kenneth Walker, by the way, completely quiet today as well. The Giant defense was incredible today. They were just flat out incredible. There's no other way around it. You said it. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Deonte Banks, Micah McFadden continues to be all over the field. And Bryce, look, it's worth having the conversation now, and it has to be had. I don't know what the next 12 weeks of Giants football have in store. Nobody knows. But for everything that's gone wrong with this team, including 2 division wins that you'd like to have back that could have easily, or 2 division losses that could have been 2 division wins, the Giants sitting on October 6th at 2-3 in an NFC that is so freaking upside down, especially when you consider the 49ers lose again.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you the team's a Super Bowl team. I want to make before anybody jumps down my throat. But I have to admit, and I think you would have to too, if we've learned anything, especially last year when you saw this team was in worse shape than they are now when they made a little mini run. The Giants aren't dead for that last wild card spot. Heck, they still have another game with the Commanders coming up. Let's see when the Commanders start to get a little meatier on their schedule. They're not dead for the division either. That Eagle game in 2 weeks is going to be enormous, obviously. They can't go start the year 0-3, and the Eagles hardly look like world beaters. I mean, if you're telling me today the Eagles will definitely beat the Giants or the Giants will definitely beat the Eagles, you're an idiot. You have no idea what's going to happen in that game. The Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow's frustrated, obviously, after they blow that game to the Ravens. Who knows what's happening with the Bengals on Sunday night, and we have 6 days to rationalize whatever's going to happen. All I know is this, Bryce. I still want this team to obviously draft a quarterback, trade up for a quarterback, whatever they want to do. But I can't sit here on October 6th at 2-3 after a win versus Seattle Seahawks and tell you definitively the Giants cannot, in a 7-team race, make the playoffs in this NFC. I cannot do that.
Listen, as well as the Giants played today, I'm not trying to knock them for what they did, but like I called it. I think both of us discussed it. You know, the Seahawks are frauds. Like
they are,
the
man.
3 wins are very unimpressive.
They are.
They just did not have big wins. They get.
But if you're looking to break a tie down the line, man,
Lions.
this win's going to be huge, dude.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. When you look at the trajectory of that team, the Seahawks did not have as easy of a schedule going forward as they did to start the season. Look at their wins. We know we talked about it on the last one, Giant Step, and they get smacked by the Lions. And I'm like, all right, like, well, I really just don't think that they're that good of a team. I thought the Giants would keep it close. I thought they'd lose eventually. They proved a lot of doubters wrong today, Shaun, and Brian Dable did. Because there's been a lot of negative sentiment surrounding Brian Dable and his play calling and his attitude, as I mentioned. But I really think he shut the haters up. Like after again, what I'm going to keep drawing this back to is from the start of that game for what happened to have happened, and for them to come back out there. I know they went 3 and out in the next drive, and they end up getting the ball back after and they scored. It is so impressive. Shaun, I'm so impressed by the resolve of this Giants team to bounce back the way they did. And that's the one thing that I think, besides the competent play in Deonte Banks and all the individual performances, the biggest thing to take away from this game is that they bounce back. This could be a sign for things to come this season. And Daniel Jones' great play. I hope we have conversations of, do you let him finish out his deal? Like, I hope that is a conversation at some point that we have on this podcast.
I don't want him to, but
I know, but I hope it is, because that means that the Giants are good this year. We both deep down, as much as we want the Giants to lose out and get a quarter, that's out of the window now. There's no graphics made by Andrew Kaplan, or there's no
shout out. Are you?
There's no more graphics made by him. There's no more beef with Brandon Jacobs. The Giants, we don't want them to tank anymore because they actually look good. They gave us something to be excited about, and it's been a while, Shaun.
Without their best
player. Relax. Dexter Lawrence.
Well, before I get to that now, let's also talk about this. We just discussed the whole game without talking about what basically was the final play. The Seahawks are able to come down and get a field goal attempt, which would give the Giants the ball back with 104. For the record, I just want to put this on the table before I get Bryce's opinion. I thought, based on the way the Giants moved the ball, they were going to get a field goal attempt to win the game in regulation. I really did. With 104 left, 2 timeouts, I thought the Giants would have put themselves in a position. I don't know how long a field goal it would have been, but my gut told me when the Seahawks lined up, I said, there's so much time left. In the way the Giants had done it versus Seattle, I said, you know what? They're going to get a field goal attempt. So this is weird because I kind of still thought the Giants were going to win the game. I thought they were going to win the game on a walk-off field goal. But I had said earlier in the game, I turned to my sister and I said, the last time we blocked a field goal for a touchdown, 2016, Janoris Jenkins versus the Saints. I'll never forget. It was crazy. It was right before the half. And that was obviously a playoff year. And I called it earlier in the game. She screamed in my face. She goes, "Oh my God, the block field goal." I don't know what my feeling was, but I sat there almost stunned. And this is a referendum on the NFL.
Yeah.
The way Isaiah Simmons jumped over the defender. I don't know about you, Bryce. I was just sitting there going, is there no flag? There's no flag.
Yeah.
They caught me in a spot as an NFL fan, as a Giant fan, where I think I forgot the rule, didn't know the rule. I don't even understand the rules anymore. But whatever Isaiah Simmons did was legal. It was unbelievable. And what an incredible way to seal a victory. I don't know where you stood on that, but I still have to pinch myself that is the way the game ended.
I was in shock. I was in absolute shock because unlike you, I thought they were going to lose the game. I thought they were going to allow the field goal, that Daniel Jones was not going to be able to move the ball down the field, and then everything would implode. They'd lose the game in embarrassing fashion. That's just who I am as a sports fan. It's a problem, and a lot of my friends hate me for this, but I'm not going to sit here and say I'm always right, but I'm right a lot because the realism that I have, I'm not tied to these players. I'm not tied to this team in such a positive way that, I automatically think that everything's going to be great. I have no hope. And I know this is completely, it's a sidebar. I have no hope for Aaron Judge in the postseason. And I've been on this crusade for like 6 months now. My friends hate me for it, but look who's coming around now.
Right.
There's a reason why I am the way that I am. And it's because of stuff that's happened in the past. I was in shock. I did not expect this to happen. I expect them to blow the game again in embarrassing fashion. And when Simmons blocked the kick, I was just like, there's no way that just happened. There's no way that just happened. It's so funny because it all came full circle because at the start of the game, we were all, I can't believe this didn't happen, and in a negative way. And then at the end of the game, of course, can't believe this just happened, but it was so positive. They won the game.
I think for me, that was, and there was a couple of these in 2022. This was the most incredible finish to a game and the most, I think, numb and stunned I was, where I just went nuts since probably stopping Jacksonville a yard short. If you remember that Jaguar game in 2022 that gets forgotten. Yeah. Everybody will point to opening day with Tennessee and the missed field goal and everything. But remember, the Giants had beaten the Jaguars that day, and the Jaguars were coming down the field to either tie or win the game, and the Giants basically tackled them 1 yard short to end the game. This was the most stunned I've been since that moment. It was just incredible when Isaiah Simmons blocked it. And I will say this. I know the right play is probably to kneel down at the one, and we talked about Singletary 2 weeks ago in Cleveland. Good for Isaiah Simmons, good for Bryce Ford Wheaton. Obviously running it all the way into the end zone and just sealing it, and the Giants getting that 29-20 victory, because you know what? The 29 does look a little sweeter on the scoreboard, and Seattle did get the ball back, but the game was over, man, and it was just straight jubilation. And frankly, incredible. And look, the Eagles are on a bye. We're taping this at a time where the Seahawks and the Cowboys and Steelers still haven't even kicked off.
Yeah,
the game's
going to end at 1 o'clock.
Yeah,
the game's literally going to end at 1 a.m.
The Commanders obviously beat the Browns, but their schedule is going to stiffen up, and the Giants still get them one more time. It's a weird NFC. It's a weird NFC East. And this could be the last win the Giants have, or the Giants could have 6 more wins, or 2 more wins, or 3 more wins. But the point is, as it stands on October 6th, the Giants are not dead. They are not dead any way you slice it. Now, you could be the biggest negative fan in the world. You could be the biggest positive fan in the world. And I welcome all of you, and Bryce welcomes all of you to listen to One Giant Step, and we appreciate you. But this is a feel-good moment for the Giant franchise. In the end, could we look back at whatever happens and it is the difference in a quarterback? Maybe, but we'll cross that bridge when we have to do it. But right now, it's hard not to be pumped up on October the 6th, the way the Giants just won a football game in Seattle. And I think we can close with that, Bryce.
I listen, again, as I said, I'm very excited for what is to come for this team. You got the Bengals on Sunday night, and all things considered, that should be a bounce-back game for the Bengals. But from what we've seen this year, we can't really
Bryce, let me ask you this.
Count on that.
Bryce, let me ask you this before you wrap up. We're obviously going to do a whole preview pod, and you know the way Giant fandom works. And any of you listening knows how this works, right? Like, you ride a roller coaster all week on how you feel, ups, downs, and you settle on something. And I got to Sunday today, and I got to be honest with you, it was something in the air where I felt positive. I don't view the Bengals as some kind of impossible challenge the way many would have before the season. And I'm not telling you they will win. I'm not telling you they will lose, but I'm very much excited for Sunday Night Football with the Bengals. Put it that way.
And it's so funny because I think both of us discussed this at the start of the season. We looked at this as like an automatic loss. We're like, yeah, the Sunday night game against the Bengals, whatever.
Nah, I don't look at it that way at all now.
No way. I don't think that you can, based off how well the Giants have played and then just how bad the Bengals have looked. I think that if the Giants didn't win this game, they didn't give us something to be excited about, I would still mark it off as a loss because I still view Joe Burrow as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL who has suffered some pretty devastating losses this year, who is looking for a bounce-back game in a major spot. And Sunday Night Football, there's no better platform. There's no better environment to get that win. I don't think the Giants are going to give that up, though. They're not going to let that happen easily. They're probably going to have Neighbors back, probably going to have Singletary back. They've got all their guys. Like, what's the line going to be? I think probably like Bengals -4, which is, kind of crazy.
What do you think it is right now?
Think about
Let me go to my FanDuel, which, by the way, I was very proud
I think it's minus. It's got to be like -4.
I'm going to say
-5.
Bengals -3.5 right now.
I got.
I had to guess. It's on the road. You think 4?
Yeah.
Hey,
look, knowing Vegas, it might be like 7 because of how
Bengals -4.5. But the VIG is very much juiced to the Giants getting the points. It's -115 at +4.5.
Yeah.
So it is a 4.5 point spread, but the money is Giants +4.5 as it stands. I like the points with that game right now. I do
too. I do. But here's the thing: the Giants could also lay an absolute egg. Like we're not counting that out. We're not saying that that's not going to happen because it might. But right now, we're just going to enjoy what we all got a chance to witness, the absolute roller coaster of a game that was today. It was insane.
Well, Bryce, I think we should wrap it up here. Shawnee needs a shower. Shawnee's had a day. Bryce has had a day. You guys all have had a day. You can follow me at Shaun Morash. Follow Bryce Gelman at Bryce Gelman. You can obviously listen to Evan and Tiki Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. We're going to do plenty of the baseball, plenty of the football. Just incredible month of New York sports and what should be an incredible week of New York sports. Bryce and I, this is why you're going to want to download and subscribe to One Giant Step. If this is the first time you're listening, welcome aboard. If you're a multiple time listener, thanks again. Everywhere podcasts are available and free on the Audacy app. It's great. We will drop our preview edition pod of the Bengals. The Giants have, at least as it stands at the moment, an interesting game coming up, and frankly, an interesting season will continue on. Thank you, everybody, for taking one giant step with us.